Okay, let's just jump right in. Who is the single greatest musician of all time? Now, at first glance, that seems like a simple question, right? It's the kind of thing you'd argue about with your friends. But the more you start to pull at that thread, the more you realize it's actually one of the most complicated and, honestly, explosive questions in all of art. And to even try to answer it, we first have to figure out why it's so loaded in the first place. And you see it all the time online, don't you? This one comment about some list of all-time greatest songs just perfectly captures the chaos. People get genuinely heated about these rankings. Because when we talk about music, we're not just talking about notes and rhythms. We're talking about our identity, our memories, our culture. And that's where it all gets messy. I mean, for a lot of people, you could make a very, very strong case that the conversation starts and ends with the Beatles. For millions, they are the default answer. Their influence on pop music, on culture as a whole, it's so huge it's almost impossible to even measure. But then, what about someone like Gucci Mane? He is an absolute titan for an entire generation of rappers out of Atlanta. Seriously, without him, the sound of modern trap music just wouldn't exist as we know it today. And then, what about Joseph Haydn? We're talking about the father of the symphony here. His work literally laid the groundwork for a huge chunk of Western classical music. So how on earth are you supposed to rank these three artists on the same list? It feels absurd because, well, it is. So if we're going to even attempt this, we first have to agree on what we're even measuring. What does the yardstick for musical genius even look like? Well, on one hand, you've got pure commercial dominance. We're talking staggering numbers that are just impossible to ignore. Drake can drop an album and it just takes over the charts. The Beatles, over 600 million units sold worldwide. But then you have enduring influence. As Dave Navarro famously said, Black Sabbath are the Beatles of heavy metal. They didn't just sell records, they created the entire blueprint, the very language, for a genre that's still going strong today. So, which one is greater? And this really shows us that the whole idea of genius isn't just one thing. The Beatles had this massive, world-altering cultural impact. Frank Zappa, on the other hand, was celebrated for his insane, mind-bending technical skill. And then you have Lauryn Hill, who reached legendary status through the artistic purity of one single, landmark, Grammy-winning album. Three completely different ways to be great. And just think about the sheer effort behind that genius. It took over 700 hours of studio time to record Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And this was in an era of 4-track recording. The Beatles' whole approach, that everything on the album had to be new and different, from literally chopping up tapes to using headphones as microphones, was a kind of innovation you can actually count in hours spent in the studio. But here's the thing. Our perception of who's a genius doesn't just happen on its own. It's also shaped by these really powerful forces that tell us what we should be listening to. So who are these gatekeepers and how have they changed? It's pretty wild when you see how radically the role of the gatekeeper has shifted. Back in Haydn's day, you had to please these wealthy patrons, like the Esterházy family. He literally wore their uniform. Fast forward to the 20th century, and it was all about the critics at magazines like Rolling Stone or Pitchfork. But as we saw recently with Pitchfork getting folded into the men's magazine GQ, it really feels like that era is ending. Today, the most powerful gatekeeper in music isn't a person at all. It's an algorithm. And trying to influence this new gatekeeper, it's a totally different ballgame. It's less about making some grand artistic statement and more about generating data points. Artists are now coached to optimize their profiles, pitch directly to playlist editors, and most importantly, get fans to engage, to save, to share, to add to playlists, because those are the signals the algorithm is built to notice. But, maybe losing these human gatekeepers isn't such a terrible thing. This Reddit comment makes a fantastic point. Critics were never some objective authority on what's good. They have been hilariously wrong about music that ended up changing the world countless times. They just provide an informed opinion, a starting point for the conversation, not the final word. Okay, so we've questioned the metrics and we've questioned the critics, but what if we need to go even deeper? What if the very thing we're trying to rank, music itself, isn't even what we think it is? So this is the standard definition of music that most of us in the Western world probably learned. It's the art of arranging sounds in time, using melody, harmony, rhythm. It feels really solid, almost universal, like a scientific fact. But it's not. This quote from a cross-cultural study is honestly staggering. It reveals that our whole concept of music as this separate, distinct art form, it's a cultural construct. It's not a universal human truth. A lot of cultures don't even have a word for it. And here's why that matters so much. In the West, we tend to treat music as this isolated thing, something you listen to. But for so many cultures around the world, like the marrying of Papua New Guinea, you can't separate the sound from the dance, the ritual, and the religious meaning behind it all. It's not just an art form, it's a fundamental part of life. So how can we possibly declare a greatest when the very definition of the game changes completely depending on where you are in the world? So, if our metrics are flawed, if our gatekeepers are now just code, and if our entire definition of music is a cultural invention, then what's left? What actually makes a piece of music great? I love this comment because it gets closer to the real truth than any critic or sales chart ever could. Think about it. A food critic can tell you all about the history of a dish and the chef's complex techniques, but they can't change how it tastes to you. If you don't like it, you don't like it. End of story. And music is exactly the same. It is a deeply, fundamentally personal experience. So after all of this, after all the history, the theory, the cultural analysis, we land right back at that first simple question. If there is no objective standard, no supreme authority, who is the final judge? You are. You're the only expert on what moves you. You're the only critic who matters for the soundtrack of your life. The greatest musician of all time isn't some name on a list. It's the one who feels that way to you. So forget the official lists for a moment. Forget all the arguments and the sales figures. What music is so great, so important that it has a permanent spot on your personal playlist? That right there, that's the only list that truly matters.